Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, 500 days of Israel's war on Gaza.
Hamas police patrol the streets of an enclave leveled by a 15-month war.
After weeks of a fragile truce, what's the current state of Hamas? I'm Kevin Hirten, and this is The Take.
My name is Khaled Al-Hroub. I am based in Doha. I am a professor of Middle Eastern politics at Northwestern University here in Qatar. When I did my master's degree in London, Hamas was my thesis. That interest evolved into writing a book about Hamas that appeared in the year 2000. For some people, they say this is, maybe the classical work on Hamas as early as the...
You wrote the book on Hamas.
Yeah.
Khaled, throughout this war, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly said his goal is to destroy Hamas.
We will destroy Hamas, free our hostages, and ensure that Gaza doesn't ever pose a threat to Israel again.
The elimination of Hamas is a necessary step to ensure that the day after, there will be no element in Gaza that threatens us. Hamas will not be there. We will eliminate Hamas and return our hostages. That is the instruction, and that is how we act.
Now, that has not happened. Hamas is very much still in charge in the Gaza Strip, out on the streets, manning checkpoints. How would you describe the current state of Hamas?
Obviously, militarily speaking, it has been weakened. There is no doubt about this. And it has been weakened in terms of the administration, the overarching control over Gaza Strip. However, it remains the main address and the main official organ that has the ability and capacity and manpower to administer Gaza. We have seen throughout the 500 days that the only authority, be it visible or invisible, be it underground or above the ground, that was Hamas. People, if they want to go to any authority, they would go to organs on what remained of Hamas's government institutions and ministries. So for me, the mere acknowledgement within the Gazan society, that is, if there is some address that we want to go there, we want even to complain against, this is it. It's Hamas government, it's Hamas people, it's Hamas institutions. So this tells us that is after all this very long period of a brutal war, Hamas is still there. So there is, I think, major failure on the Israeli side's objectives of the main goals. One of the main goals was the destruction of Hamas. And as everybody has seen recently, in the handling of the Israeli prisoners' release, Hamas was there, fully fledged, almost control in the Gaza Strip. These were very shocking images, I guess, to everyone that was watching what was happening.
Can you describe a little more about what Hamas's presence looks like on the ground in this new version of Gaza and how it's providing services or not providing services?
Hamas has been in power in the Gaza Strip since 2007. So since 2007 until this very moment, Hamas again was the exclusive controlling power in every single layer of administration, politics, military, social services. So I think they have built massive experience. And when we talk about Hamas, this is a group, this is a party, this is an organization, social, political, religious, cultural organization that has been integrated all the time within the Palestinian society and emerged from the Palestinian people. And because of this, you can feel Hamas's presence in every single corner in Gaza Strip. So yes, the scale of destruction was massive, unprecedented and unexpected by everybody. Equally shocking maybe is this resilience and survival of Hamas. So I think it's really extremely difficult, if not even impossible, to extract Hamas from the fabric of the Palestinian society in the Gaza Strip and as well as in the West Bank.
Yeah, so just in terms of the day-to-day, I mean, things have changed so much. Hamas used to be in charge of basic things like water services or garbage collection. I mean, in parts of the Gaza Strip that are completely flattened, how has that changed? Is there more about like protecting convoys, distributing aid, that limited aid that's coming in? How has the day-to-day changed in terms of just providing basic services?
If we think of the internal security, the policing of different neighborhoods, towns, cities, refugee camps across the Gaza Strip, Hamas is the political body, the policing body that is doing this. If we talk about, the convoys that you have mentioned entering the Gaza Strip, not only now, but also during the war, however few of them now and then, manning these convoys, policing them was in the hands of Hamas. The distribution process of whatever supplies that managed to get into Gaza Strip, that was again the responsibility of Hamas. When women give births, for example, in the Gaza Strip, Hamas's civilian apparatus would issue a birth certificate to the new babies. If you have even a divorce, maybe kind of incident, Hamas would register, this incident. So again, in the social level, legal level, policing level, and at the political level, you have the influence and the control of Hamas. This is not to say that everybody is happy about Hamas's performance and delivery of services, because compared to the period before October the 7th, there is a huge and massive gap, obviously. But the main point, I guess, for me and for our discussion is that whether Hamas is still functioning, is still the operating political body and governing body in the Gaza Strip. And my answer to that is yes.
What about the captives? That's the big issue that's in the news right now. I mean, there's been some criticism from Israel about the state of the captives. Of course, people have been starving all over the enclave, so that seems a little disingenuous. What sort of message is Hamas sending with the release of these captives, in your opinion?
Well, I think there are so many messages. One of them, before coming to the point of releasing the Israeli prisoners, is the point of how did Hamas manage to keep them alive, move them from one place to another, despite the most highly sophisticated surveillance on earth. Americans' intelligence, British intelligence was there, French intelligence was there. This is on the top of the Israeli intelligence. The Gaza Strip is very small, narrow piece of land. So you can imagine there was not maybe a single stone untouched or unsurveillanced by all these, the multiplicity of these intelligence forces. And yet Hamas managed to keep them. So I think this is a massive message about the military capabilities, the organization, the non-infiltration into Hamas's military side. And then we come to the show of releasing them. And in itself, you have very bold message to say that it is us who are controlling, the show, controlling the Gaza Strip. We have our soldiers, if you like, parading the streets in Gaza Strip, controlling, the masses, organizing the handover of the prisoners to the Red Cross, in step-by-step message, as if you are dealing with well-established government, not a party, a military party that has been under continuous war for 500 days. So people thought, Hamas's military, Hamas's fighters will appear maybe totally worn out. But the image that Hamas gave was extremely, I guess, surprising and totally different against all the expectations.
In strictly military terms, I know former U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said recently that Hamas is quickly replenishing its ranks.
We assess that Hamas has recruited almost as many new militants as it has lost. That is a recipe for an enduring insurgency and perpetual war.
How would you compare Hamas's strength now to the start of the war?
Definitely, it's weaker than before, than the start of the war. But again, this is a party that is integrated in the Palestinian society, and in many periods of time, Hamas was saying before the war that they don't have the capacity to accept the new recruits. Many young people wanted to join Hamas. This is before the war. And now during the war, because of so many reasons and because of so many maybe frustration and anger, you have even more waves and waves of young people wanting to join Hamas. So this is why I think the whole talk about, ending Hamas, eliminating Hamas, has no link to the reality on the ground.
We've seen the assassinations in the past year of Hamas leaders, Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, and Mohammed Deif. We've discussed how that hasn't destroyed Hamas, but it most certainly has changed Hamas. What do you think Hamas has learned from this conflict, and how will that inform how it moves forward?
Well, I think they had this lesson before, because all the way through, since the early years of the creation of Hamas, their leaders have been assassinated one after another. In the second intifada, Palestinian intifada, in 2004, I think, the leader of Hamas, the founder of Hamas, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, was assassinated. So this is the overarching, if you like, figurehead of Hamas was killed by Israel. 1 month after that, they killed somebody called Abdelaziz al-Rantisi, who replaced Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. So people thought, maybe myself included, that Hamas was finished. They killed the two prominent leaders of Hamas. Hamas learned the lesson, and they had this kind of collective nature of leadership. They don't rely on one single individual, 2 or 3. So this lesson has been learned, and you have this kind of resilience, this kind of a quick replacement of leaders. So we have seen this in this war. In this war, the military commander Mohammed Deif was killed, his deputies were killed, and Hamas continued to fight. In fact, the fiercest maybe battles Hamas fought in northern Gaza were after the assassination of their well-known military commanders, Mohammed Deif. And so I think they are used to this. And they have this kind of dynamics and mechanism of replacing their leaders, relying on the nature of the collective leadership.
We'll have more with Khaled after the break. Khaled, we're having this conversation on Friday. We don't know what's going to happen. It's been shaky, the ceasefire. But at the time of this conversation, it does look like it is holding for now. But even if it does, this is a pretty fragile truce. And the next phase of the ceasefire is supposed to start on March 1st. What is the state of the negotiations? How is that supposed to actually take place?
From what we can see, I think cautiously we can say this could hold and continue. The appetite for the continuation of war somehow is lacking in the region worldwide. The whole world is consumed and fed up with the war. The only party that wants to resume war is the right-wing parties in Israel, for some kind of internal kind of political interests here and there. But so far, I think we can be cautiously optimistic that this could continue.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the negotiations, will there be discussions between Israel and Hamas in terms of a plan for post-war Gaza happening for this second and third phase?
Well, Hamas insists on one major thing, as all Palestinians equally insist. That is, the so-called next day should be controlled by the Palestinians. This is a Palestinian issue. This is a Palestinian cause. This is a Palestinian land, should be ruled and administered by the Palestinians. Now, it's up to us, the Palestinians, as Hamas says, as even Fatah says, as the Palestinian Authority says, It's up to us to manage our internal affairs and come out with certain formula according to which we control and we rule Hamas, we rule Gaza Strip. Any other alternative, be it Arab, be it regional, be it Western, be it the NATO, is totally rejected, strongly rejected and ruled out.
We can't have this conversation without at least mentioning President Donald Trump's plan for Gaza. He's talked about cleaning out Gaza and the U.S. owning it. This is obviously much easier said than done. What has Hamas's response been to that?
Well, Hamas's response was exactly as the Palestinian response across the board. That this is not only immoral, brutal, and genocidal plan. This is an absurd, this is a crazy, this is far-fetched, even fanciful ideas that has no legs, basically. It will never, ever be implemented. The Palestinians in Gaza, they moved from the south to their destroyed homes in the north. You say for you, this is a demolition site. For the Palestinians, this is a beloved homeland. This is their land that they lived there for decades and they will never leave. So this is the message that keeps coming from Gaza Strip individually, collectively, at every single level. One Palestinian individual that I interviewed, what is your response to Gaza? He says, we can't debate logically with this. The only thing that I tell him, F off. So that summarizes maybe the whole thing. That is, there is no sense, no logic. There is no argument, no ground for sensible argument to have with this plan, only just kind of to dismiss it and to say this is up.
I think it's easy to look at the destruction of Gaza over the last 500 days, the number of Hamas fighters killed, the assassinations of high-profile leaders within the group, and come away thinking Hamas has been destroyed or at least greatly, greatly degraded. But it sounds like, from what you're saying, this is a misconception. Where do you think that this misconception comes from? Is it from the type of media that people are consuming?
Well, yes, I think there are kind of two, let's say, providers of stories about Hamas and about the war in Gaza. You have Western media and then you have Arab media. Arab media, the people, they have correspondents, they have representatives in the Gaza Strip, such as Al Jazeera, so many other kind of channels. They had their people in Gaza Strip and they remained in the Gaza Strip. So you have massive advantage for the Arab media because of this. So they have the original source of material, of the coverage. Western media, I think most of them, they relied on secondary sources. And then the end result was you have almost two different portrayals of Hamas and of the war in Gaza. On the Western side, you have this image about Hamas, number one, as alien group. This is an alien group, maybe transplanted in Gaza Strip or coincidentally by whatever kind of set of conditions, like Al-Qaeda or ISIS in Syria or Iraq. And this is, again, massive misconception to see Hamas like something alien. Hamas is, what is Hamas? Hamas is the Palestinians. Hamas equal the Palestinians. The Palestinians equal Hamas. This is number one. Number two, when it comes to the idea of eliminating Hamas, on the Western media side, well, yes, we can do war and then we can finish this group. As easy as this, period. On what comes from the Arab media is totally different image. That is, they go there in the Gaza Strip. You have Hamas fighters, Hamas people, Hamas civilian administration, Hamas governance. So Arab audiences, the Palestinians and others, they know that is Hamas is there and managed to continue and to remain there, and it will continue even after the war.
This war is so unusual in so many ways. For one, media has not been able to get into Gaza to actually monitor what's happening, other than a few, Al Jazeera included. The other is that Hamas is one of the two combatants in this war, and the Western media or the international media pays very, very little attention to one side of the war, what their perspective is. What do you wish that people knew about Hamas's perspective that just doesn't get out there in the mainstream coverage?
Well, I think that the main idea, the main maybe theme, the main that I really want wider audiences to know, that is, it is not about Hamas only. This is not a war for Hamas or because of Hamas or Hamas's war. This is the war of the Palestinians. This is part of the war of liberating Palestine, having independence, self-determination, and decolonization of Palestine. Now, to limit everything to Hamas as this is an alien group, terrorist group, and this is so humiliating to millions and millions of the Palestinians. Hamas is just like Fatah when they used to do resistance, as many other Palestinian parties in the past, in the present, and in the future. If Hamas disappears, if Hamas decides to stop resistance tomorrow and after tomorrow, we will have another Palestinian resistance movement. So it is not about Hamas. This is about the Palestinian self-determination, independence, and liberation. So this is the cause, and this is the core of it.
And that's The Take. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to give it a like so more people can find it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please let me know what stood out to you. If there's anything you'd like us to dive deeper into next time, I'm always checking in. So please keep the conversation going. We'll see you tomorrow.